Now live.
Okay, thank you very much. Can I have nominations for chair, please?
I nominate Councillor McLean.
Seconded.
Thank you very much. Welcome everybody. Welcome to this meeting of the Council's Licensing Subcommittee. My name's Calvin McLean. I'm a councillor in Wilmington, Sutton, Hone and Hawley. Before we go any further, before I ask my colleagues to introduce themselves, can everybody on this meeting please just ensure you're on mute if you're not speaking, please? So the mute button's on the far left hand corner on the at the bottom. Please mute that unless you're speaking, please. Just helps with any background noise. Okay, I'm going to ask my colleagues on the committee to introduce themselves, starting with Richard Wells.
Thank you, Chair. My name is Councillor Richard Wells. I am the councillor for Town Ward.
And my name's Emma Ben Musa and I'm the councillor for Swanscombe Ward.
Thank you, colleagues. Everyone should have access to the agenda. You'll see on the first page an outline of the items for the remainder of today's meeting. So we'll firstly deal with item 2. Apologies for absence. I have apologies from Councillor Matt Davis, who was meant to be sitting on this, but due to unforeseen circumstances couldn't. He's duly substituted by Councillor Richard Wells. Item 3, do any members have any declarations of interest which they need to declare? Including the alternate member. Okay, thanks. And sorry, I should just introduce our alternate member as well. Do you want to introduce yourself, please?
I'm Councillor Tom Madison for Temple Hill Ward, and I'm the alternate member today, in case anything breaks down with one of the other members. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. If there are no declarations of interest, next item on the agenda is any urgent items. I haven't been informed of any urgent items. Is that still the case, Neil? Or can I just check with Mr. Twyman? Is that still the case? We have no urgent items.
Chairman, as far as I'm aware, that's the case.
Thank you very much. Okay, having dealt with those matters, we can move on to item 5, which are the rules of procedure. This sets out how we're going to do things for today's meeting. So in outline, we will follow this procedure. The subcommittee will first consider any requests where a party wishes another person to appear at the hearing. Does anybody have any legal representatives or anything today? Can I just ask the applicant, is it just going to be yourself speaking today, or are you going to have anybody else?
Yeah, it's just me. I've got another licensee that works for me sitting with me, but okay. It's just for him to remind me.
Okay, no problem. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, so the first thing, once we've moved on, is the licensing manager will introduce her report. Then we will move on to parties to address the subcommittee in the following order. The applicant will address the subcommittee, and then objectors. So we have Kent Police, we have Environmental Health, and we also have a local councillor who will introduce themselves as their time comes. Parties should note that members of the subcommittee have read and will consider the written material contained within the agenda. Parties are not permitted to ask questions of each other. Any questions by parties to the hearing must be addressed through the chairman and the subcommittee. Members of the subcommittee may, however, ask questions. All parties are entitled to give further information in support of their application or representations and to address the subcommittee through the chairman. Material not produced in advance of today's hearing will only be considered at the consent of all parties and the chairman. I just want to check with everybody concerned, Ms Rickards, the police, Councillor Currans, Environment Health. Do you have any further material you wish to submit, just so we can deal with that now before it comes up? Shake of the head is fine.
Nothing from police.
Thank you very much.
I actually have a couple of things that I'd like to be considered.
Is this material, as in paperwork or anything like that?
No, I've sent all mine over.
That's absolutely fine. So it's just to check on that point.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. The subcommittee will disregard any evidence that is irrelevant and is not about the promotion of the licensing objectives. Hearsay evidence will be permitted, but consideration will be given as to the due weight attached to such evidence. Once all evidence has been heard, the subcommittee will hear closing submissions with the objectors first, followed by the applicant. And when going into closed session to deliberate, we will be joined by our clerk, who's Mr. Neil Murphy, and our legal advisor. The clerk and legal advisor will take no part in the decision making, although the legal advisor may be asked to give legal advice to the subcommittee on legal points around the Licensing Act. The alternate member, who's Councillor Madison, will not form any part of the deliberations unless he's been called upon to replace one of the original subcommittee members. All other attendees will be returned to the Zoom waiting room while we're doing that, and the YouTube feed will be stopped because those are private discussions. But on the resumption of the hearing, when we come to give our decision, the YouTube feed will start again and everybody be readmitted. When we do come in, any legal advice or that has been given to us will be relayed, just as it's been relayed to the licensing subcommittee in deliberations, just for transparency, and everybody knows what legal advice has been given. If we're able to announce our decision today, we will. If not, we will give a decision within 5 working days, and that will normally be in writing. But we do anticipate, we do try to make these decisions on the day because everybody's waiting for a decision. Now I've explained all the process, we're going to move on to the substantive agenda item, which is an application by Mrs. Yvonne Rickards for a variation to the premises licence held by the Wig and Gown, Spittal Street, Dartford, Kent. So over to Mrs. Philpott, who's the licensing manager, and she will introduce the report.
Thank you, Chairman. The report before you today details the application to vary the premises licence of the Wig and Gown Public House under Section 34 of the Licensing Act. The Wig and Gown is a public house situated in Spittal Street and forms a part of the nighttime economy within Dartford. The current premises licence, granted in May 2018, permits the sale of alcohol for consumption on the premises, live and recorded music and late night refreshment, during varied hours throughout the week, with the latest permitted time of 2 AM on Friday and Saturday. The full licence is at Appendix B, page 47 of your report. These activities and hours do not form part of the variation application. The application seeks to include the licensable activity of films and to amend the times of live music and late night refreshment. It also seeks to remove conditions on the licence and replace them with new ones. Representations objecting to this application were received from the police, environmental health, and a councillor who is the portfolio holder for the High Street Revival and Town Centre. The representations are accepted under the licensing objective, mainly of crime and disorder and public nuisance. The committee is asked to determine this application based on the details of the report and the evidence received today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, so Mrs. Rickards, we're over to you now. So as I said at the beginning, we've read the licensing subcommittee. We've had this paperwork for just over a week now, so we've read it all. But you've got some time now to draw us the salient points of your application. You know what the objectors are saying, so you've got an opportunity to rebut or correct the record. Please go ahead. We may have some questions for you afterwards.
Okay. Basically, I understand why originally we had such a harsh licence put on us, because the venue that we took over was a troublesome venue, had lots of drugs and trouble. We've been here 2 years now with no incident. I've stuck to everything that everybody's given to me for 2 years, and all I'm asking for basically is the courtesy of what other pubs have. I've spoken to many licensees in Dartford that all allowed to use their back garden, and as it states in my statement, there's 5 venues around me that can all have their back gardens open till they close. I'm asking for the same courtesy. We're not your average pub anymore. I've spent a lot of money and energy and effort into doing the garden. The garden is an oasis now. It's full of plants and seating. It's not how can I explain it? It's not actually a garden where you expect youngsters to sit in and get drunk. It's family orientated. We do lots of things for the community. At the moment, we've just been asked to do a charity event for Mind, because last year I lost a son-in-law to suicide, and we've lost a lot of friends lately. So when we ask for these, like the acoustic music in the back garden, we're not asking to put on live bands out. The garden's not big enough. We're not asking to have speakers out there. The back garden's not big enough. It's just when North West Kent College come to us and ask us if they can put on shows, I'm asking to arrange all these things so that I can help these people. We are a community pub now. We are not a Spoons. We're not another pub. We are one in our own. As I said, we are family run. I do value my license, and I value it to the point that we don't have drink problems, like we don't have the drunks in here. We took the first 6 months of having this venue, of getting rid of the undesirables and working really hard. We have a Met officer come down once every 6 months to talk to our staff, to explain to them what to look for drugs, not the normal so many people going to the toilet, this, that and the other, but the other things. When you look at people, you can. So he comes down and he does a talk, and it's not just the normal drugs. He talks about other drugs that aren't around at the moment that you need to look for. We're now a quirky little pub. We've got an Alice tea room. One of our rooms is all done up with teapots and pictures on the walls, and so it's not somewhere that we're going to let idiots and morons in, and I say that in the most nicest way I can, to wreck it. And we listen to our customers. We listen to what they want. We are old-fashioned. I'm 61. I'm not a 19-year-old kid trying to run a managed pub. I'm a 61-year-old woman trying to run a family pub so that people can bring their girlfriends in, people can bring their children in. We want to extend our cooking hours because it's what people want. And it's like when I asked for the reduction of down to 3 door staff, that was before the COVID. I was going to say we're running at 30% capacity. People have to sit down in here. They are table, it's all table service. You're sat in your seat and it's table service. So I've taken on more staff for that. So I was wondering whether we could, just for the duration, because apparently music and everything is not coming back till 2021, whether we could run on 2 door staff. I don't want to get rid of door staff because I value the team that I've got. If a drunk walks up to the gate, they turn them away. They turn them away before 12. So asking for 1:45, 15 minutes before we close, they're still going to turn the drunks away. It's just so that we can expand our business into something that's worthwhile for the community, not just a drinking hole in Dartford, the same as everyone else. I don't know. I just would like the courtesy what every other pub has got around me. They're allowed people in right up until closing time. They don't have to have door staff when they have music, but I'm not asking not to have door staff. I'm just asking to allow us to build our business into a community pub, what it's become. I mean, if people come here and see it, they would see it's not your average pub. It is now a community pub. I don't know what else to say.
Well, thank you very much. I just want to, just before I take any questions from colleagues, I just want to point out we're required under the law for licensing to treat every application on its merits. So we're not able to consider what another pub's got and whether or not that's fair.
I do understand that. But because a lot of the licensees drink in here, they come from other pubs and we sit down and we chat. Mm-hmm. And I've got a friend that actually lives right in the middle of a housing estate that is allowed her garden open. Mm-hmm. And I feel that I feel singled out because, and it's no disrespect to Dan, but the the lady that's Claire, the first thing she actually says to me before I say anything is, you know, it's not personal. It now feels extremely personal.
All right. Well, look, the way in which licenses are granted is that they, you know, conditions are added depending on what the situation is, and so what we're not able to do is say X pub in X place has this. So
I know. That's why I've not mentioned any names, but I just feel that being the only pub in Dartford that's not allowed any of these things is a bit harsh. And I do understand why it was put on us in the beginning, because I know the reputation it had. But we have turned it around, and we have worked really hard to make it what it is today. It's in 2 years we've had no problems whatsoever. We haven't had to call the police. The only problems we've had is me leaving here at 2 o'clock 2 years ago at Christmas and got beaten up by 12 youths that come out of Attic, and it took 2 months for the police to get here. Then they couldn't find out who it was, even though Attic had all the CCTV of the lads, and we gave them the CCTV. And then the following year at Christmas, because I'm well known for decorating it to the full, we had decorations out the front. 2 lads again from Attic jumped over our fence, done thousands of pounds worth of damage. And I went to the police and I spoke to them and gave them CCTV. Attic had the names of the lads, but again, nothing has been done. So yeah, I do feel a bit peeved about the whole.
Okay, all right, point taken. Okay, so we're going to move to questions now. I'm going to start with Councillor Binmus, if she's got one or two.
I do, thank you. Yvonne, can I ask you, since the conditions were imposed last time, what noise mitigation things have you put in place?
What we've done is when is it Julie came, we've got a fireplace inside that we've blocked off. We've got a window that we've blocked off. We keep all our windows and doors shut, and we've got this, I don't know what it's called, but it's a monitor on the wall that if the music gets too loud, it cuts off the music, it can't be played. We never have our doors and windows open. We do have air conditioning. Sorry, I'm a bit ditzy today. We have air conditioning, but if it gets too hot, we just say to people, go outside, go and get some fresh air, because as I've said, I value my license, and the conditions were keep the noise down, and that's exactly what we do. And we've got in the back garden, as I'm asking for acoustic in there, it's full of plants and pots and rush on the gates and everything, so it absorbs the sound, so it doesn't get out into the street as much.
You hear more from the cars than you would from.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, my son lives here, and he gets woken up by the cars, passers-by, late night revellers after we've closed. So, you know, we are in a place that there is noise. Without us, there is loads of noise. We can hear bins being emptied, bottles being collected, blah, blah, blah. We can hear all that after we close. So, you know, we've done everything we can to keep the noise level as low as possible.
Thank you. You say you're at 30% capacity at the moment. What would you expect to be at when things eventually get back to normal?
I don't know, because we're changing. There's questions I can't answer like that, purely and simply because no one knows. We don't know how long this is going to go on. We haven't got, we've got a different clientele to most pubs in Dartford. We're looking at turning it into a steak restaurant at night. We're still going to have bands and music, but again, we're just going to do the same as we've been doing to keep the noise down. We do as much as we can to keep it within the venue. It is a big old building, and it doesn't actually let
And turn it off.
as much noise out as the newer type buildings. So, you know, hopefully it will be 100% capacity, but I don't, there's only been once or twice that we've been at 100% capacity.
Oh, I'm just wondering, you're saying that, you know, you talk to your customers, how many more would, sorry, 2 seconds, how many more would turn up if we granted this license?
Quite a lot more, because what happens is at weekends, at the moment we're closing at 8 because we can't afford 4-door staff. So a lot of our customers are either going home or going to another venue, but they prefer to stay here because it's a bit more friendly and they feel safe, because we have obviously groups of girls come in, we have groups of lads come in, we have couples come in, we have families come in. And, you know, hopefully they would all, well, the ones that I've spoken to do want to stay, but I just can't afford. I mean, our door staff last year was £30,000 just for 4-door staff, and that's a lot of money when you're trying to build a business. So, I mean, this is an unprecedented time at the moment, because obviously we can't have music. So I can't. We're looking at we've extended our cooking hours from 10 in the morning till 10 at night, but we can't do that at the moment because of emptying the bins. So we can't close we have to close our kitchen early so we can throw stuff away. So we're looking at different things to do, to like maybe a comedy night and what's the things called, quiz nights and things. So it's not going to be noisy anyway at the moment. You know, it's just going to be a community pub, because that's what we are.
Thank you. I'm going to pass it over to Richard now in case he's got any questions.
Okay.
Councillor Wells.
Thank you very much, Chair. Just if I could just pick up again on the garden issue. You say that you've made changes in the garden,
Yeah,
and that will lessen the sound that would local residents would hear. Did you take any particular advice on on the change that you made, and did you consult with environmental health? So just so we could be sure that actually the change you made actually will reduce the noise.
to be fair, when we was doing the garden, we wasn't thinking about opening late, this, that and the other. We was just doing it so it's a nice place to sit. When environmental health come out originally, we've got a dry arbour, and what we've done with that is we've put a roof on, obviously, because when it rains and it's cold, and inside we've put bulrush, and we put bulrush up at the gate, and we filled it full of plants. I mean, I'd like to be able to show you a picture so you can see what I mean, but I don't know how to do it. But I wasn't considering, because we're only allowed to open till 9:30. We've been working on the garden for 1.5 years to make it a nice place to sit. But in turn, it has lessened, and it does like keep the sound in. But then, you know,
just an unplanned.
it was an unplanned thing that we was doing. I didn't think to speak to anybody because I wasn't planning on.
You're just getting your friends.
I was just getting my plants in because I love
No, that's fair enough.
the
Yeah,
garden.
yep, sure. Yeah, I understand that.
Yeah.
When you talk about putting the bins out and like disposing of bottles sort of later at night, are those bins actually in the garden as well?
Yeah, they're in the garden. I've got a bin cupboard. As you come out the back door, it's to the left. It's a bin cupboard there. Do you know, I'm not too concerned about the bottles.
No.
Because if we've got to keep them in the kitchen, it's our kitchen waste. Because we've only got half an hour, we can't extend our cooking times, because I don't want to have little furry friends in my kitchen, because
No, I understand. Yeah.
if we're keeping kitchen waste in, they're going to find it. I mean, at the moment we're pretty lucky, touch wood, because we keep our bin cupboards clean, we disinfect it, and everything's swept out and kept clean. Because again, I'm really, all our food is homemade, so the waste of homemade food is not as much as frozen food, but when we peel potatoes, potato peelings need to go out, and sometimes at 9 o'clock at night I'm peeling potatoes ready for the next morning, but I'm stopping doing it purely and simply I can't put my bins out, and it causes an environmental problem in my eyes.
Okay, understood. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Thanks. That's all from me, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, I've got a couple of questions, Yvonne, if you wouldn't mind. In the police's representation, they've alluded to the fact that you've been breaching a condition around your door supervisors. Do you want to give us a little bit of information about that?
I have not breached my condition around the door supervisors at all.
Okay.
What I tell you what happened, to be 100% honest, when I met with Claire, the licensing officer, we were sitting down, we was talking, and I said to her about maybe putting bands on a Thursday, and if we put bands on, I put door staff on, because I'm not stupid and I do want to have a safe place. And when the license come back, I hold my hands up, I didn't read it completely, and I just see bands Thursday, door staff 4. I didn't read it fully. And when we'd been open 6 months, I hadn't had a band on a Thursday at all, so I didn't put any door staff on. And then Claire came back to me and said that I'm breaching my conditions. So I was like, how? And she said, you haven't got any door staff on Thursday. And I sat and said to her, well, what we agreed was if I put a band on, I put door staff on. And then she said, no, you haven't read it properly. You have to have 4 door staff on a Thursday. I was like, okay, fine. Then I'll close at 8 o'clock in the evening on a Thursday. And I have done for a year and a half. And we'd been open 6 months. So for 6 months, I was running Thursday evenings without door staff, but we didn't have a band on. And Thursday's a different day. I held my hands up to it, apologised, and I closed at 8 o'clock. And Claire sent round the police for a month and a half afterwards to ensure I was sticking to my licence, and I've done that. So that was the breach, and I hold my hands up to it because I read what I thought we'd agreed to.
It's more a misunderstanding of what you thought it
basically was. So other than that, yeah.
Okay. The police will probably come to this when they're talking, but in their representation, they're talking about now perhaps you don't need door staff on a Thursday, and that you've already alluded to it. So if we were minded to grant this variation today, would you be happy for a condition that says anytime a band is on a Thursday, you must have door staff?
Oh, absolutely.
We'll talk about numbers of door staff, because I know that's in contention as well. Yeah. But you'd be happy for a condition that says...
Absolutely. Anything I do, I am quite willing to put on the door staff that are needed. To be fair, when we have had large bands on that we know are bringing in a lot of custom, we have the 4 door staff, and we have at least 3 licensees on duty, so that the pub is being watched, because as I said, we've put a lot of money and effort into the pub and we don't want it ruined. So yeah, I have not got a problem with putting extra staff on, and we do that now, so I would carry on doing it. It's my baby. I'm not running it for somebody else, so I keep my finger on the pulse, basically.
Okay, that's good. Let's talk about the numbers of door staff now. So the police are insistent on 4. I've never been into your premises. I'm very familiar with it because I've been past it God knows how many times now. So tell me why 4. I'll ask the police as well, but tell me why 4 at the moment.
That's what was agreed to in the very beginning, because of the problems the pub had before, which I was quite willing to agree to. And to be fair, I might get a little bit upset here.
It's okay.
But tell him last year.
Which one?
Ginger.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Oh, yeah. So last
What's
year...
your name, sir? Just so we've got it for the record. What's your name?
Yeah. My name's Chris Leader. I'm one of the licensees here.
Okay.
So Yvonne's son-in-law committed suicide last year.
Okay.
So
The license got brought
yeah, when she applied for the license last year, it was at the same time. So
Right.
when she went for it, she didn't get it in the paper in time, and everything was thrown out. So she had a lot to deal with at that time, and it was just something that she couldn't think about, as well as trying to organise a funeral and everything else.
I understand. Okay.
Yeah.
Alright.
So it was just kind of the she agreed to the the door supervisors, didn't really fight it because there were other things going on at the time.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's not really relevant, if I'm honest, because once you've kind of had the license granted, it's granted.
Yeah.
I think what you're saying is, had you had a bit more fight in you at the time, you probably would have gone against that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'd redone it last year to drop the door staff, but the agreement when Claire and I sat, I'm so sorry about that.
No.
When Claire and I sat down, and we was talking about the venue before we actually took it over, and she said about the venue, about having 4 door staff. I said, if that's what it takes, that's what it takes, and we'll relook at it again in a year. To
And we are looking at it, aren't we? We are looking
yeah,
at
but
it.
it's 2 years now.
Okay. But the point is, we're looking at it now, aren't we?
Because
And
last year, yeah,
yeah, we're
and
looking
this is why. Yeah, I'm so sorry about that.
It's okay.
To be fair, it is a fair sized venue. It's not a small venue. We have 2 at the front gate, and I have 2 inside, just walking around and keeping an eye on it.
Okay.
But we've now put another person through their license, so we've got 4 licensees that are capable of keeping an eye on things now. And the reason I wanted it dropped down to 3 was so I can have 2 at the front and 1 just wandering around, keeping an eye on it.
Sure.
So, but if I need 4 at any time, I will put 4 on. It's not.
It's not set in stone. I think what you're saying is,
I'd like.
if you need 4, you'll put on 4, but you'd like to pay for 3 because you feel
Yeah.
that's suitable.
If I put on 4 and the night's dead, I'd
Yeah.
like to be able to say, well, actually, you can go home. You know, yes, it is about money. I'm not going to lie,
Yeah.
because I wouldn't be a businesswoman if it wasn't about money. But
Yeah.
when you've got 4 door staff there all night, just standing around chatting because there's nothing for them to do, when one of us can do what they're doing, I mean, to be fair, the door staff fight to come to my venue because it's one of the easiest ones. So
That's fair enough. That's fair enough. Okay. And you preempted one of my questions about what the operation is at the moment, so that's fine. Now, anytime we grant variations when people want extension of hours or something different, a licensing subcommittee always want to really have confidence in the person that's going to be running the place. So,
absolutely.
can I just ask about you? You say you've been for a long time. How long you've been running licensed premises?
Since I was 17.
17.
I
Okay.
trained with Bernie and Schooner Inns, and I have been a license, I've been on premises for years. I've been a licensee since I run the Wat Tyler when I was 20.
You don't need to give me that much detail. So a long time
A
then.
long time, yeah. I'm a bit long in the tooth.
I'm going to do experienced publican.
Yeah,
And you say you've told us, and obviously we'll speak to the police and others.
Yeah.
Since you've been running this place, there's been no problems.
none whatsoever. No, and if it, you know, we have a lot of police drinking in here, to be fair. But
That's not always a good thing, by the way.
oh, I don't know. They behave themselves because they get my boot as well as anybody else. So I haven't got a problem. I'm known as quite a harsh woman because I don't take any. I'm so sorry about this, but I don't take any crap.
Mhm.
I will stand up to the biggest guy and go, get out of my pub, basically, because it's mine. It's my baby, and I'm not going to have any idiots ruining it for us. Do you know what I mean? I want it to work. I had no.
Oh no, we lost Yvonne.
I'm here to stay, and I will fight for it.
Okay, thank you, Yvonne. We lost you towards the end of that, but we get
Oh.
the gist of what you're saying. Thank you very much. I haven't got any more questions unless any other member does. No. Just to make a point, just because I have to, I understand the issues around business and finances. It's not a consideration for the licensing subcommittee, okay? So we will never make a decision based on affordability. We'll never make a decision based on the viability of your business.
I know, I do
Okay.
understand that.
Okay,
It's
thank you
just
very
when
much.
I got a letter saying on there, it says it's all about, it's a monetary thing. I'm a businesswoman, of course it's about money, but it's also about the safety and the community, basically.
Thank you very much.
I'll have a coffee.
All right, if you just put yourself on mute now. So we've asked all our questions. We're going to hear now from the police, Environment Health and Councillor Currans, okay?
Yeah, I'm just trying to find my button.
All right.
There it is. I might not be.
There we go. Thank you very much. Okay. Let's go to PC Hunt, Kent Police. You just want to introduce yourself for anybody that's watching, tell everybody what your role is, and then you've got as a reasonable amount of time to expand on the representation.
Okay, PC Dan Hunt from Kent Police Licensing, and I'm one of the licensing officers for the division. Righty-ho. Forgive me, I script everything in advance, so if I'm looking at the paper and not looking at you guys,
That's
it's
okay.
not on purpose. Okay, so the Wig and Gown, formerly known as the Courthouse, I believe closed its doors in 2017, and my understanding was that it remained closed until Mrs. Rickards took over the lease in 2018. Prior to its closure in 2017, Kent Police did have significant concerns regarding the venue. Those concerns related to incidents of crime and disorder. And I think Mrs. Rickards has alluded to that as well. Now, the application for a premises license from Mrs. Yvonne Rickards was received by Kent Police on the 28th of March, 2018. Now, within the documentation, Mrs. Rickards offered a number of conditions that she felt were appropriate and necessary at that time for the premises to be able to promote the licensing objectives for when they reopened. And my assumption is that Mrs. Rickards had based her proposed conditions upon both her knowledge of the area and also upon her knowledge of the previous history and the previous problems that was associated with the pub. Now, the applicant, Mrs. Rickards, actually offered the condition regarding there being 4 door staff at the premises every Thursday, Friday and Saturday, and on those other seasonal dates and bank holidays. It wasn't something that the police imposed, it was something that Mrs. Rickards offered on our initial application. Now, having received that application, a meeting was held on the 11th of April between PC Cossar, she's my colleague that wrote the representations, a council licensing officer, and Mrs. Yvonne Rickards, and that meeting was in order to discuss the application. Now, at that time, PC Cossar proposed a number of conditions that Kent Police believed would further promote the licensing objectives. Now, Mrs. Rickards accepted and agreed to those conditions, and one of which was the condition regarding the no entry or re-entry after midnight. That was one of the agreed conditions. Now, this particular condition was proposed by Kent Police in order to mitigate risk and to minimise the potential for disorder at the premises. As I've already stated, prior to the premises closing in 2017, this was a premises of concern. So a key benefit of that no re-entry after midnight condition is that it helps prevent people that may have been, for example, ejected or turned away from one of the other neighbouring premises. It prevents them from coming to Yvonne's premises and causing trouble. It also helps and prevents persons that are already intoxicated, having visited one of the many other nearby pubs, from coming in, topping up, and then causing further problems in the Wig and Gown once they've already entered. And like I say, Mrs. Rickards agreed to this condition being added to her licence. And I believe that this would have been done because she too agreed that it would benefit the premises and promote the licensing objectives. As you know, the representations submitted by Kent Police in this case relate to the removal of the conditions specific to the door staff and the condition that's specific to that last entry or re-entry. Whilst 2 further conditions have been proposed by Mrs. Rickards, Kent Police do not feel that the new conditions offered sufficiently promote the objectives. In relation to the Thursday evenings, Kent Police understand that not all live music events and band nights draw in a large crowd. We appreciate that they can be very hit or miss in popularity, and also very hit or miss in relation to the numbers of customers in attendance. We take on board the comments made by Mrs. Rickards and the comments made in her written representations. And we also note that she tries very hard to support local bands, local artists, and she does so by not ticketing those events, and they often operate as a financial loss. We appreciate that. That said, however, it is still fair to say that live music and bands can change the dynamics of the pub or its clientele. Taking all of this into consideration, Kent Police would be happy that the door staff condition be amended so as not to require door staff compulsory every Thursday. So we're happy that that be removed. However, we would ask for a condition to be added that would require the premises to undertake a risk assessment for any events that take place Sunday through Thursday, and if deemed appropriate, for door staff to be employed. If the premises do deem it necessary to employ door staff, for example, on that band night on a Wednesday or that band night on a Thursday, we would just ask that the number of door staff required mirrors the number of door staff that operate on a Friday and Saturday. With regards to the reduction in door staff numbers on a Friday and Saturday, Kent Police still have concerns. As Yvonne has said, the premises is of a decent size, with both front and rear beer gardens. The toilets are located on the upper floor. On a Friday evening and a Saturday evening, the dynamics of the premises do change, in my opinion, they change quite dramatically. It's no longer the family pub, which I'm sure it is at other times. It effectively becomes a nightclub style premises with a DJ and a dance floor, which operates into the early hours of the morning. Now, the current number of 4 door staff allows for sufficient checks to be conducted throughout the premises, including checks in the rear garden, checks at the main entrance, checks around the DJ, dance floor and toilet areas. And the door staff play a vital role in preventing crime and disorder. They control the entry to the premises, searching, making ejections, preventing access to drunk people, preventing access to underage persons, drug dealers, and so on. They have quite an important role. Now, with regards to changing the, sorry, I'm losing myself now. With regards to changing the last entry or re-entry timings from midnight to 1:45, Kent Police also have concerns. Now, it is probable that persons wishing to enter the premises up to such a late hour are likely to already be intoxicated. It is possible that such persons may have already caused issues within the town centre and may have already caused issues and been ejected from one of the nearby pubs or clubs. I fail to see how being an attractant for such persons could be of benefit to this premises. It places additional pressures on the door staff and on the bar staff on duty, and also increases the risk of incidents inside the premises. Added to this, there have been occasions previously whereby staff at the premises have explained the current cut-off time at midnight causes issues in that the customers get angry, annoyed or upset and sometimes kick off with the door staff because they refused entry. Now, why would you want to allow such persons to enter? Because changing your last entry time to 1:45 would effectively allow such persons in. You will note in our written representations that Kent Police request that the number of door staff each Friday and Saturday remain at 4, and that the last re-entry condition remain at midnight. However, I'm going to propose a slight change to what is in our written representations. Having given further consideration to the matter and to the written representations provided by the applicant, and taking into account the level of reported incidents of crime and disorder have remained low since the premises opened in 2018, Kent Police would now support the number of door staff required to work every Friday and Saturday and bank holidays to be lowered to just 3 persons, but only provided that there is no change to the last re-entry time of midnight. Should the last entry time of 145 be granted, Kent Police fear that a reduced number of just 3 door staff would be insufficient to deal with the increased pressures that the relaxation of the re-entry condition would bring. Now, it is fair to say that the level of reported crime and disorder at the premises has remained low since 2018. It could be argued that that is a result of better management of the premises by Mrs. Rickards and her staff, or that the current premises licence conditions have proved effective in preventing crime and disorder from occurring. Or perhaps, most likely, it's a combination of the two. I feel the proposals laid out today by Kent Police in relation to having a risk-assessed door staff condition Sunday through Thursday, 3 SIA door staff from 8 o'clock till closing Friday, Saturday and bank holidays, and for the last re-entry time of midnight remaining the same, is a compromise that would not relax the licence conditions to such an extent that it hinders the promotion of the licensing objectives and makes the pub fall back to what it used to be in 2017. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Okay, questions. I'll go to Councillor Wells first this time.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you very much, PC Hunt. I was going to ask a question about the number of door staff, but actually you're changing your representation actually answered that one. So I'll skip over that. But can I just, a couple of things. First off, on your representation, just to clarify, you've objected on the grounds of prevention of crime and disorder and on prevention of public nuisance and on public safety. Can you just clarify which objective the public safety part related to? Because I can see the objections on the other two objectives, but not on that one.
Sorry, I'm a little bit, I don't mean to be rude, I'm a little bit confused with the question.
Yeah, sorry. On your representation, then it says that there's objections. Your representation relates to 3 of the 4 licensing objectives. So you've objected to on the grounds of prevention of crime and disorder.
Yep.
So that you've explained that, and also on prevention of public nuisance, and you've explained that, but also on public safety. So I wonder what was that just an error, or was that? I mean, what's your specific objection regarding public safety?
I'll be perfectly honest. I think public safety would be covered by those other 2. I think they all mould into one. It would be my personal opinion.
Okay.
That probably doesn't answer your question as well as you'd perhaps like.
There's public safety. Sorry, Chair.
I think from our perspective, public safety normally relates to stuff around fire safety,
Yeah. Okay.
And so
Okay.
on. So it was just something that when we discussed, we had a pre-meet and we weren't clear on, was it an error or is there a genuine public safety issue relating to this application?
I can see the angle that you're coming in from, and I appreciate that. If it's with regard, you would consider public safety like with regards to like the fire brigade, etc., then I appreciate it's maybe not relevant. I think where we was coming from is that the crime and disorder, the public nuisance and public safety all kind of go hand in hand, and I can only assume that's why PC Coswell has put public safety on the application.
No, that's absolutely fine. I just wanted to make sure that we hadn't missed anything. That was all. My next question, though, is regarding the your representation and your suggested condition about the risk assessment, asking the pub to do a risk assessment on weekdays for the door staff. What would it actually involve? It's just because, I mean, having a risk assessment, surely you'd have to give more details of that, because I mean, I wouldn't want, if you actually went forward with that, I wouldn't want the pub to be in a position where they don't actually know what they actually have to do to have a risk in terms of have a risk assessment, and what level that has to reach for them to actually put on door staff. I mean, I think we need a little bit more detail on what was suggested there, personally.
I think the point I was trying to make with that specific condition is, like Mrs. Rickards has said, it may be that she has a band Monday through to Thursday.
Mm-hmm.
All we're asking is on those particular nights, if they are going to have a band on a Thursday or a Monday or a Wednesday or a Tuesday, just that they give consideration for door staff. They assess the event that they're having that they're going to proposing to put on, and they do a risk assessment based around that specific event. And if they feel it necessary, they have door staff. It's very similar. I'll be honest, Mr. McLean suggested a condition that said if they was to have a band, for example, on a Thursday, that they had door staff condition in that scenario. I would be happy for that to be the condition, or for ours to be the condition. I think what we're just trying to say is if they do have a band midweek, that consideration is given for door staff.
Okay, I understand that. So it wouldn't be a case of like then, oh, we've got this band and it's that we think that might have more people and this one wouldn't. So it's just a case of you'd be happy if it was just if there's an event like a band, then door staff. Okay, thank you, Chair. That's all my questions for now.
Thank you, Councillor Benmesser.
Thank you. PC Hunt, can I just check with you? You've said that you're happy for the door staff to drop to 3 if the last entry is at midnight. However, are you still of the view that the last entry should not be 1:45, or is it a case of keeping the door staff at a higher level? Or is it an outright no for 1:45?
For us, it's an outright no for 1:45.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, just to add, we believe that that particular condition is very, very effective in preventing crime and disorder at the venue. It stops those people that I alluded to earlier on from coming to your venue and causing problems. So we'd be happy for the number to be reduced to 3, providing that condition was not to change.
Okay, all right, thank you.
My colleagues have anticipated my questions, and you helped out with the SIA because I was going to ask the question around that, so that's fine. So Peter Hunt, thank you very much. We may come back to you if we need to. Hopefully we don't need to. So now we're going to go to Mrs. Short, who's our environmental health team leader. Julie, if you just introduce yourself, we obviously know you, but anybody watching may not know you. If you just introduce yourself, say what the team do, and then you can go into your representation.
Hello everybody, my name's Julie Short. I'm the Principal Environmental Health Officer with the Environmental Protection Team. We deal with a wide range of topics, one of which is noise nuisance. And it's in that aspect that we have commented on the proposals for the changes to this licence. Whilst I would concur with Mrs. Rickards that we haven't had any complaints since she was granted her previous licence, I would suggest that is because we have pitched the conditions correctly. To the best of my knowledge, no other establishment in the locale plays music externally. Not only do we get problems from music, but potentially we get problems from loud voices and shouting. And for that reason, I objected to the extension of the use of the garden to midnight because of the impact that can have on local residents. With respect to the structure that has been erected to the rear garden, it consists very much of a rollout sheet of grass with a corrugated polycarbonate roof, which would do nothing or with respect to the minimisation of noise. And as Mrs. Rickard said, she didn't come to us asking about that. With respect to the deposition of kitchen waste, not bottles, but kitchen waste, I can see, yes, there could be a little leeway with that. However, I would disagree that by leaving food waste, and there shouldn't be that much between, finish of bulk of service and close of business, premises should be pest proofed, and a small amount of material left within a kitchen in a bin shouldn't be sufficient to, well, rats and mice shouldn't be able to get into that premises. It should be suitably proofed. But I could see a little bit of leeway from the environmental protection viewpoint on that timing for the last emptying of the waste out to the bin. I'm very worried about the potential for music to cause disturbance, to keep people outside, and the extension of the live music inside to 2 o'clock, again, as the police have suggested, I would believe will change the nature from this family-friendly establishment that is likely to be there in the daytime to not be there at night, and people to be outside until midnight in that garden. The noise levels would not be gentle chatting by any stretch of what we have encountered in environmental protection in the past, so what we've encountered elsewhere. That's it, unless anyone wants to ask me anything or I've missed anything out.
No, I think that's said a lot. I'll go to colleagues first. We'll go Councillor Ben Musser this time and then Councillor Wells.
I don't actually have anything on this one. She's
Okay.
talked through it perfectly.
Thank you very much, Councillor Wells.
No, not me. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I do, Julie. I'm afraid. Just one or two. The first one is, I just want to be clear about the proximity of residential premises to the back garden. You know Dartford very well. I'm sure you know this area very well. Can you just roughly, I know there's some new flats on Kent Road, isn't there?
The nearest house is a footpath away from the back wall of the public house. I don't think you can, you probably can't, can you, I don't know where, can you see that? Probably not.
Yeah, I can, yeah.
That's the nearest property. The other side of the road, you have the cloisters. Behind the garden of the public house, in what used to be the solicitors building, you have houses there, and then you have a mews of properties have been built there.
Okay.
So the garden has residential properties in close proximity to it.
Okay. And if we were, I mean, obviously we've been asked to look at midnight. If we were minded to grant that with a condition around a suitable sound insulation or structure, what type of thing, just hypothetically, would you be suggesting in the condition, or the applicant would need to do, or is that a futile exercise?
I think futile exercise. You can't do it. By Mrs. Rickards wants it to be an area for smoking. A smoking shelter you can't fully enclose unless the sort of structure she would have to build would not make it a garden anymore. It would be a building.
Okay.
It's not practicable.
And I'm just so I'm going through all of the possibilities here.
Yeah.
Would it be acceptable, for example, if we were minded to extend the use of the garden, to have a restriction on the amount of people who are allowed in the garden at any one time? Would that help, or is that futile?
Okay, we have tried that with a previous establishment in the locality who had a doorkeeper, a doorsman counting people in and out. They ended up with an abatement notice and are no longer allowed to use their external space.
Right, okay.
Okay, we've got another...
And, sorry, go on, did you want to say anything else?
Oh, that's fine.
Okay, in addition to the bins for food waste, you said it could be some leeway. Would you consider completely removing that restriction, or what, in your professional opinion, would be an appropriate cut-off time?
I think we could probably go to 11 o'clock for food waste. It all very much depends on the behaviour of the staff that are doing it and how responsible they are in what they're doing. If they're smashing and crashing lids, and it's very difficult to someone very gently lifting a lid, putting something in carefully, putting the lid down. The bin for the food waste will have far less impact to the glass waste. The noise of emptying, containers in, it is horrific.
Yeah, I think Mrs. Rickards even agrees with that one around the bottles.
Yeah,
that is very loud.
We could agree to making later.
Okay, that's great. No more questions from me. Any more questions from councillors, members? Thank you very much. Thank you, Julie. You're more than welcome to stay, but I'm sure you're very busy and you've got other things to do. So if you need to leave, by all means, please leave and we'll let you know the outcome.
Thank you very much. I will take you up on that, and I will leave. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you. Take care.
Thank
Bye.
I've got a
Bye-bye.
couple of
Oh,
issues. Sorry,
sorry.
I've got a couple of issues with this.
No, Mr. Rickard, you're not allowed to ask any questions. But what we will do is you'll have an opportunity to sum up before we go to make our decision. So you can rebut any points that Julie has made if that's what you need to do. All right.
All right.
Thank you very much. Okay.
Chairman, sorry,
Yeah.
I just wondered if the applicant did have any issues that perhaps it might be useful to have Julie's input on, because if she is leaving now.
Okay. Okay. Fine. Are these? Sorry, Mr. Rickards. Are these just a couple of issues, or is this?
Yeah, just a couple of issues.
Okay.
Firstly, Julie was saying about a 2 o'clock music in the garden. I haven't asked for that. I've asked for a little bit of daytime music, like between 7 and 9ish in acoustic. That's all I've asked for. I've not asked for a 2 o'clock music in the garden at all. I've certainly not asked for bands in the garden. And Julie's saying that another pub that she's given it to has been, I thought we couldn't use another venue when we've got the industry that is closer to them houses than myself. There are people out there screaming and shouting till 2 o'clock in the morning. We have video evidence of this, of loud music in their garden. So this is why I get really a bit peeved with it, because we're doing everything we can and everybody else is getting away with it. So I know what you said to me, I'm not allowed to use somewhere else. Well, surely Julie can't use the...
Yeah, I think we will give due weight to anything that's said. That applies to everybody, really. We're not going to compare premises to premises because we're dealing with the application in front.
I'm sorry, I do get angry because...
No, I think the point that Mrs. Short was trying to make, I asked her the question as to whether or not numbers, if you restricted a number of people, say to 10, right, I'm paraphrasing here, would that make a difference, or would it?
But also,
or would it be a few? Hang on a second. Would it be a futile exercise? And what she did, she said, well, we've done that before and it didn't work. That's not to say it wouldn't work for you, but I asked an opinion and she gave an opinion.
But also, if they're not at the back garden, they're at the front, which is within the same distance from houses at the front.
All right.
So,
is there any other points you want to raise with?
No, I don't think so. But other than we haven't asked for late night music at the garden at all, we've asked for a bit of acoustic so we can help out North West Kent College and the single people. That's all we've asked for.
All right. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, we're going to move on to Councillor Currans. Thank you, Julie. We're going to move on to Councillor Currans. Councillor, we've read your representation, so please expand on that, and then we may have some questions. Over to you.
I'm Councillor Rosanna Currans, and I'm lead member for the regeneration of Dartford Town Centre. And I can assure you, it's nothing personal. It is just various things that I'm a bit worried about. Excuse me. With the bar and garden being open and live and recorded music until very late could cause a great nuisance to the flats in and around the public house. It seems clear to me that the fact that there are no complaints about the premises at the moment, it is a good indication that the current licence and conditions are appropriate. I do not see that these alterations would be of benefit to the local community, and totally agree with Environmental Health that to remove conditions in relation to the garden would only serve to cause nuisance to residents living nearby. Dartford Town Centre is undergoing significant regeneration with a mixture of businesses and residents, and should be allowed to have peace and quiet late at night. It is possible that children are also in the flats, and a further extension to the garden opening late could cause more noise and flashing lights to disturb their sleep. I cannot see why the readmission time should be altered to so late, at present 0 hours until 01:45. This could cause more problems with customers already having been drinking and being ejected from other establishments, and encouraging them to enter the pub to drink even more, which is likely to fuel violence and require police to attend more often, which is why I'm sure which I'm sure they would prefer not to. When the garden is closed, where will the smokers go and get rid of their used cigarette ends? Obviously, the front of the building. This could lead to a lot of cigarette litter on the pavements in front of the pub, and the council will be responsible for clearing it up. Bearing in mind the applicant wants to stay open later, I cannot see any logic with regards to the request to reduce the amount of SIA staff from 4 to 3, but we already know the police have agreed that that might be able to be reduced. So if they think it's okay, what worries me is if you have something on at the public house and only a few people turn up, what happens 2 hours later when a crowd of people turn up and you've only got the 3 people on the door? But that is more for the police than for me to comment on. I think the current conditions have worked well, and I do appreciate why you want to open later, but there just seems to me no point in actually having people coming in to the pub at 1:45. That to me is really ridiculous, but once again, it's not down to me to agree it or not. I'm therefore asking that the application be refused. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Corrins. I will go to Councillor Wells first. Have you got any questions for Councillor Corrins?
I do. Thank you, Chair. Hello, Rosanna. Just a quick one regarding what you've said about the cigarette smoking. It doesn't.
Yeah.
I wonder if you could clarify on it. You said that if the garden's closed, then people will go out to the front.
Yeah.
But then the application is for the garden to stay open later.
Yes, but when it does close, which is at the time that they are wanting it to close, they are still going to be smokers, and they are going to have to go out the front because they're not allowed in the back garden because it's closed.
But then, if we're talking about the garden, that's not going to be increased by this application, though, is it? If we're talking about the garden being open later, then surely that will mean less people going out to the front.
Yes, but then the pub is going to close later. With regard to the pub closing, the garden closing
Councillor, just very quickly.
100 hours, there's still going to be people in there till 2 o'clock. So where are they going to smoke?
Yeah,
out the front.
But that's happening already, though. I think that's the point.
Oh, yeah.
Councillor's trying to make. They're already open until 2 o'clock.
Yeah.
But you know, there could be a condition that we could consider, I suppose, around cleaning up the front. But go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to just say on that. I mean, in terms of the people smoking out the front, then I mean, I'm sure that it'll be confirmed or not. My understanding is that there's actually a smoking area out the front anyway that already has ashtrays. That's my understanding of it. So I don't know if that would be a massive change, but yeah. Anyway, I think that was the only question I had at this point. Thank you, Rosanna. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Could I just add? I'm sorry, I should have added it before. Obviously, with the regeneration, there are going to be a lot more flats, a lot more businesses in the area. So you could have a lot more people disturbed by late night music.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Benmesser.
No, I have no questions. Thank you.
Oh, sorry. Thank you. Councillor, I don't have any questions, but it's something that's come to my mind that I want to ask the police, and it's relevant to what you've said as well. So if I can just bring in police again. Thank you. Just a quick question, Dan. One of the things that you spoke about the readmission was people moving from venue to venue have been ejected and so on. Would you consider that if the premises were part of DTAC and the radio system, would you consider that that would help them know who's been ejected from what premises and who not to let in, if we were minded to forgo the restriction 12 o'clock, no readmittance, etc.?
It would. I mean, I think I'm a big supporter of DTAC. I think DTAC would be very effective,
yeah,
and would allow those other premises to liaise with Yvonne's pub to warn them that those such people are on their way. So I can see the benefits.
And vice versa.
Yeah, and vice versa. Yeah.
Yeah, they could say who's left. Okay, fine. We may have a discussion about that when we deliberate. I just want to cross that point. Councillor Currans, if the wig and gown were part of the DTAC scheme, would that allay any of your concerns, or would you still have this concern?
I think I would still have concern at that, because let's face it, if a crowd move from one to the other, from one pub to the other pub, not necessarily they will all move at the same time, be in the same group. So there still could be some of these slipping through. As you know what it's like, if you get a crowd of people and they want to do something they want to do, they're not necessarily going to do it all together. Yeah. So it could cause problems for the wig and gown, as well as, yes, it's a good idea that they all communicate, but it doesn't mean to say there won't be the ones who do slip through the net.
Okay, thank you very much. Ms. Rickard, I want to bring you back in very quickly. On what we've just been talking about, DTAC, if we were minded to, we added a condition. Do you know what the DTAC scheme is? Do you know? Yeah. Do you understand it? So the best part of that was around the use of a radio system, town centre radio system, so everybody can communicate with each other and say, you know, that bloke with the glasses and a grey t-shirt, we've just kicked him out. Can you not?
We, at the moment, our door team run a few other venues in Dartford, and they keep in contact with each other anyway. Okay. But if I've got to bite the bullet and pay out for days, we've had like people come to the door that we refused entry to, yeah, and they've got in touch with their colleagues and said refused entry to blah 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 blah. But in respect to Mrs. Currans, crowds are moving up and down the town all the time, and we either refuse them entry now, or certain ones are allowed in, and we keep an eye on the situation. We're not, as I tried to explain, we're not young kids running this venue. We're all like quite older and quite reasonable, keeping an eye on the situation. But crowds are constantly moving, whether it's from our pub, but they're all around the town all the time. So I don't understand why us of a venue are the only ones that are being pushed out of the loop. And we keep our front clear now. In 2 years, there's been no complaint about the cigarette butts because we clean up. That's why we put gates on the front of our venue, because people were using our front to, after their late night revelling elsewhere, they'd go over to the kebab house, bring kebabs and sit in our front garden. We'd have to clean that rubbish up. We put gates on to stop this happening, and we keep our venue clean. So just on that note with the cigarettes.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, what was I going to say? Okay, so now we're at the stage of submissions. So we're going to, excuse me, start with Kent Police, then Councillor Currans, and then we're going to go to Mrs. Rickard. So this is just a time to make salient points you want to draw our attention to, anything you want to add following further questions, representations, and then we'll go and make a decision.
Chair, sorry, if I could just interrupt quickly before we go to police, just to say that on DTAC, we have to be careful of adding that as a condition, as it is represented by a board. So it would be the wig and gown would have to apply to become part of it. So if we made it a condition and they were refused for some reason, they couldn't comply with their licence. So we just have to bear that in mind.
Okay. And I think the point would be, if we were minded, and you know, we'll have that discussion, you know, if that happened or the scheme happened to fall away, then clearly the condition falls away. We wouldn't say you need to be part of something that doesn't exist anymore. That would be ridiculous, a bit like the EU. But there you go. Anyway, I digress. Over to PC Hunt for your closing submissions, please.
Okay, I'll be honest, there's not too much for me to say that I don't think we've said already. So just to let you know, obviously we've got no issues with the family element to the pub that I'm sure it does have throughout the day. Our only concern that we have is in relation to the bans, whether that's midweek or towards the weekend, that they are door staff conditioned, and also the DJ element and the dance floor element on a Friday and Saturday night. That's our concern. I think it's fair to say that, and I know other people have alluded to it, the current conditions, in my opinion, are working appropriately. I think that's evidenced by the low levels of calls that the police receive to the premises. And as I alluded to, in the interest of fairness, I'm sure some of that is down to the good work and the good management from Mrs. Rickards. But I'm equally as certain that part of that is down to the good conditions that have been applied to the premises license at the very beginning. So I'm sure that the current conditions are effective. As I said earlier on, I believe, as do the rest of my team, that the re-entry condition is a really effective tool. It really does prevent those drunk persons from other premises from being ejected and coming down to Wigan Gown and causing problems. It stops those potential ones that have been ejected from other pubs or clubs from coming down and causing problems. So that is something that we really would appreciate to remain at 12 o'clock. I do take on board your comments with regards to the DTAC and the benefits of DTAC. All I would say is, with a system such as DTAC, you are only as good as the information is only as good as what pubs are putting out. So, for example, what I mean is if a pub that is on DTAC has just ejected somebody, you're heavily reliant on that particular premises to report it over the radio. And I'm sure there would be occasions when that slips through the net and doesn't get reported sufficiently. So that's what I mean by you're only as good as the people that use it. As I've already stated, we'd be more than happy to lose the door staff condition on a Thursday, provided it be replaced with a condition that would mean that if there was to have a band midweek, that on that particular night there would be door staff. And we would ask that the door staff numbers on that particular night mirror the Friday and Saturday and bank holidays in numbers. And as I've proposed, providing that the re-entry condition was to remain at midnight, whilst without being rude, we would love there to remain 4 door supervisors. We would be more than happy to come to a level of compromise and reduce that number down to 3, so as not to penalise Mrs. Rickards too much on the financial element. I know we can't bring financial elements into it, but I think that's a happy medium that the police are prepared to make. I'll be honest, I don't think there's too much more for me to say that I don't think has already been mentioned already. So I'll leave it there for me.
Thank you very much. Councillor Currans?
Well, going back to the fact that the past 2 years there's been no trouble at the pub, I think that goes to show that what is in place is working. And when this was brought up, there were conditions, obviously, which did alter, and they are working. I'm really, really concerned about people living around the pub. They have got to be thought of. And I think everything else I've said, you know, I could just sit here and reiterate again, but I think they should not let anybody in the pub after 12 o'clock at night. And obviously that's really a lot of where I'm coming from. I'm worried about the dropping of one of the door people, but obviously if the police are happy, I can't say I'm not. But that really sums it up.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Currans. Mrs. Rickards, last but not least, it's over to you. Just to sum up the salient points, if you wouldn't mind. Rebuttal to rebut that piece Councillor Currans has said, and then we'll be going to make a decision.
Okay. All right, so the outside areas at the moment are vital to keep the small venues, the small family run venues open. We don't have flashing lights in the garden. We don't have flashing lights that affect the flats around us, even though the people that live in the flats know there's a nightclub and 5 other venues around them, and they choose to live in Dartford. I've got my son that lives here, and he hears all the noise from other venues, so I don't see how, by putting it only on us, how that's going to make any difference to the noise level. The re-entry, no entry, the issue I have with that, we do have DJs on, yes. We do keep an eye on the people that are in here, yes. But also we have people that come to collect people, i.e. DJs, that work and come late, and they have to sit outside. I cannot pick and choose who I let in. I'm asking for just consideration that I haven't been given the chance to prove it's us, and not only the licensing issues. You know, maybe if we could review it in 6 months, and I'm quite willing that if we have this 145 entry, not that it's going to make any difference right at this moment in time because of the situation that every pub's in, but maybe review it again in 6 months. If we are causing an issue, then I'm quite willing to go back to where we were. You know, but I'm doing my best.
Okay.
So just asking for consideration, to be fair.
All right. Thank you
Okay.
very much. Thank you. And I'll just check with our officers. Have I forgot to do anything before we go? Are we all okay? Good. Thank you very much. That's reassuring. Okay, so if you're for the representatives and Mr. Rickards, we're going to cut the feed now. You're going to move into a virtual waiting room. The rest of us are going to go into a different room, and we're going to discuss it, and hopefully we're going to come back and give you a decision today. Okay, so just bear with us. If you're watching live on YouTube, the feed's going to cut now and it will come back as soon as we're back on. Thank you very much. Yeah, we're streaming now. Thank you. Thank you very much, everybody. Before we start, the licensing subcommittee had legal advice in the deliberations. I'm going to ask our solicitor, Sarah Cotton, to just give an outline of what that advice was. Thank you.
Sorry, thank you, Chairman. Sorry, I'm going a bit grainy. Yes, there was some advice given in relation to the temporary permissions allowed under the coronavirus regulations, but we determined that that was not relevant because it related to off sales. And we gave some advice on formulating the conditions in terms of how to refer to bank holidays, public holidays, and days preceding those days. And some advice on the Live Music Act and how that applied to one of the existing conditions on the licence relating to live music in the garden area. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Okay, thank you very much for everybody for waiting. Firstly, can I thank everybody for the excellent way in which you presented your cases today. We really appreciate it. It's really given us a lot of information, and we have been able to make a decision and relay it now. The licensing subcommittee heard an application for a variation to the premises licence of the Wig and Gown Public House, Spittal Street, Dartford, Kent. Premises is a variation of the licence. It's held by Mrs. Yvonne Rickards. We've decided, after very careful consideration, to grant variation to the licence. However, we have applied conditions to licence as follows. SIA staff, a minimum of 3 SIA staff on a Friday and Saturday night, and any day preceding a public or bank holiday between the hours of 2000 hours and close. Between Sunday and Thursday, between Sunday and Thursday, SIA staff must be present for any live band events. The second point is we are not content to remove the restriction around midnight, no entry or re-entry of patrons. We heard extensively from the police, and we are satisfied that that is an appropriate condition for promotion and licensing objectives in Dartford Town Centre. The third is the use of the rear garden. Sunday to Thursday, we are content to leave the restriction until 2100 hours to Thursday. However, we are going to allow the use of the rear garden until 11 p.m. on Fridays and Saturdays, but that does not extend to public holidays or bank holidays. The next thing is the condition relating to disposing of food waste. A licensing subcommittee carefully considered this point, and we are removing this condition entirely with no restriction for the operator to is allowed to put out food waste at any time. We were convinced by the operator and the applicant in that we believe that she runs a very good premises with good staff, and we're willing and we're quite happy that those staff are going to dispose of their waste in a responsible way. However, the conditions around bottles do remain. So those conditions around bottles do remain, but we are not going to impose any further condition in relation to food waste. Okay, and that is the end of this licence subcommittee. Mrs. Rickards and everybody involved, you'll get a notice of determination within 5 working days. So that will be drawn up by our officers, and it will come to me to approve. And then once it goes out, once I approve, it will come out to you. So thank you very much. If you have any questions, Mrs. Rickards, about those conditions afterwards, please do speak to Caroline or Joanne or to PC Hunt, and we're sure we'll be able to sort that out for you. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, everybody. Take care.
Thank you.
Marie, can I just keep you for a second, Marie, before you go, when we go offline?
Thank you.